Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 39 of Professional Amateurs. This is kind of an exciting episode for us. We're switching over to a new software called Riverside. So if this episode looks or sounds a little different, it'll likely be because we're still working out some kinks with learning the new software. But yeah, so we've got the three of us back today. Jack and Ryan, how's it going?
Going pretty good. School is finally winding down here with exams ending next week, so looking forward to getting a little bit of break.
What day is your last exam?
Well, my last in-person one is the 12th, so
Oh.
I'm actually like considering school done at that point, even though I have a take-home due on the 16th too, but it's a take-home, so
That's it? So you just have the one take-home after the 12th?
yeah.
Oh my God. How many in-person exams do you have?
Just the one.
So you have one in-person exam and one take-home, and that's it? Oh,
Yeah, well, I have a few more reflections to write, but that's about it.
Oh man, I am jealous. Jack, what does your exam schedule look like?
I also just have one take home and one.
Oh my God, get out of here. Meanwhile, I have 5 exams in the next 9 days starting on Saturday, and 4 of them are in person. You freaking goons, get out of here.
Dude,
That's sick. Okay, so enough about school. We start every episode talking about school.
Because it's the only thing going on in my life outside of it.
Fair enough. Okay, so we had a big sked last night in the NHL. We could go any different directions. I didn't really see any other games because I was at the Sens game last night. By the way, I wanted to touch on this quickly. I found a parking spot at the CTC. I'm not going to reveal where it is because I don't want any of our 17 listeners to steal it. Actually, I could probably. So you know how at the auto park, there's the 2 sort of entrances to the auto park. There's that main one when you come off of the highway, and then there's that back one at the lights.
I like how you just convinced yourself into telling people because we don't actually have the listeners.
Whatever. So you know
I hope
that
someone
back.
takes it.
You know that
Yeah, I hope
back
someone takes
intersection.
it now.
Yeah, that'd be
I hope my
hilarious.
dad
Fly
chooses-
home,
I
get a
hope my dad
rental, and
chooses
just
to
park
go
her
to a
there.
Yeah, I hope my dad chooses to go to a game and takes the spot from me.
Like he wasn't gonna go, but then he heard about my spot and he went and got tickets.
Yeah, just right.
But so you guys know the like exit from the auto park that's by the lights? That's like closest to the rink. So at that exit, there's like gates that would normally like go up and down, but they don't actually ever go up and down. And so they're always up. So people never park there, I guess out of fear maybe that I don't know what to call them. I'll just go with gates. The gates will like lower and like hit the car or whatever.
Yeah.
But that never happens. They're always open. And so I've been parking like where the gate would come down, and there's still enough room for vehicles to get between like me and the separator in the middle of the road where the gates like are.
Yeah.
And so it's literally a 30-second walk from the gate to get into the CTC. So it's like no time. So I don't need my coat or anything because I'm not cold for long enough, like especially in January and February. And it takes me not even 3 minutes to get from getting in my car to getting on the highway because I literally pull a quick UE. I'm at the lights and I'm gone. It's wild. Like last night, the game ended at 9:45-ish. I wanted to leave early. I was texting Ryan. I was going to leave if Ottawa didn't score by the second TV timeout, and then Ottawa scored
right before it.
They scored literally right before it. Like they scored and then they went to TV timeout. And so I ended up staying for the whole game. And I was home. I was home by 5 after 10. Like it took me 20 minutes to get home after the game. It was nuts.
Yeah, that's absurd because it normally takes double that just to get out of the parking lot.
It's crazy. Like when we tweet out this pod, it would almost be worth like teasing it to see if we can get some Sens interaction because then people going to the games might actually be interested in like seeing what spot I have to say.
Yeah, but then
There
they're going to
come
take your
key your
spot.
car.
Yeah.
Come key my car. I don't know. I stumbled across that spot like the other day, and
Some
then
random Sens parking attendants listening to this is going to come tow your car next time.
Yeah. But yeah, I just wanted to tell that because I thought it was funny. But all right, let's get into some NHL news. I think the ideal place to start would be Shane Wright scoring his first NHL goal against the Montreal Canadiens. The only thing that would have made this more perfect if it were in Montreal. Mm-hmm. And when we talked Shane Wright a little while ago, I thought this game was in Montreal, like when we sort of laid out the potential plan with him playing a few games in the AHL, coming back up, and then going to the juniors. I thought Seattle was in Montreal, so I thought it would have been like even more special. But then I saw the goal was in Seattle. Still cool for him to have done it in front of his fans against Montreal and Slavkovsky. But yeah, so it's a pretty cool moment. Jack, did you watch the game?
No, I don't stay up for West Coast ones. That's too late.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah, it was Seattle. That's fair. I don't either. But it was a pretty sweet goal.
It was.
It was like kind of a weak side one timer. Was it on? It wasn't on the power play, was it? No,
I don't think so.
No. Okay, just the way the goal was scored, it seemed like it might have been, but I wouldn't think Shane Wright's on the power play. Ryan, do you have any initial thoughts on the goal?
I just the first thing that comes to mind is I think like last time we talked about Wright too, we kind of touched on how, or maybe this was just a side conversation, I don't remember, but like how this villain arc, it looked like it was going to be one of the better storylines coming into this season, but it faded with him not playing and being sent down and all that. So I was very like over that storyline, but now I'm all back in. I want to see him just absolutely torch the league for letting him fall to fourth. So I don't know. I'm happy to see him have success because after all the hype and where it's ended, it's just, or not ended obviously, but where it's at now, it wasn't a great look for the whole start to his career, but now it's cool to get a good story back on the board and hopefully you can just build off that.
Would it not be absolutely wild if he plays a couple games here in a row, plays really well, and they keep him through the World Juniors? Do you think that's a possibility? What do you guys think?
I mean, I guess it's possible if they really see him as someone who is heavily contributing towards what looks like is going to be their first playoff berth. But from everything I've seen so far, I think it would be way more beneficial for him to just go and dominate that tournament.
What do you think, Jack?
I think with the way Seattle's been handling it, they'll keep him up for the tournament and play him 4 minutes a night. And then send him to Kingston after the tournament.
Fair enough. Okay. So sort of another point I wanted to get to about this game. Montreal actually won the game 4-2. They're right there with like the top surprise teams in the league, I would say.
100%.
Unless you want to maybe point to Winnipeg, like they've been kind of a surprise, but they are always very like volatile. Like it seems like Winnipeg's either top 10 or bottom 10 in the league. Like it seems like they never actually end up in the middle.
I've always thought they had the talent to make real damage, but it never really came together. So I guess. And then obviously, they aren't really a surprise team, but yeah, I didn't expect them to get me as well for sure.
And then obviously like Jersey, and then like Detroit's there too. But like I would say Montreal was expected to be in lottery, and they might still end up being like a top lottery team. But as of right now, they're 13, 11, and 12, and like the vibes are insane. Like Jack, do you think that
on the blue line?
Yeah, it's wild what they're doing right now. Do you think this is?
Sorry, isn't Jack leading defensive like goal scorers? Rookie, sorry.
He's got 4, I think. So I think he's up there for sure.
Yeah, I think he's leading defensive rookies in goal scoring, which is hilarious.
In like actual goals or like?
Yeah, he has 4.
Oh,
goals.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was looking at that right now because I was going to say Gooley has 10 points, so I wasn't sure if you meant actual goals or like points.
Gooley can't get another goal for my Evo card though.
That's tough.
Jack, what do you think?
Get the Gooley one. I'm never getting the Stutzla one. So
never say never.
Is the Stutzla one super expensive?
Yeah, it's like
It's like
1.5 million coins right now, and it goes up 1 overall every single time he scores, so it's only going to keep going up.
Oh, and he's just racking up points right now too.
Yeah.
Damn. Okay, so back to the Habs. Like, Jack, what do you think? Okay, I have two questions here. Like, what do you think happens with Montreal? Like, do you think they crash and burn in the next little while? Do you think it keeps up? Because right now they're above fake 500, but they have a minus 12 goal differential, which is worse than the division.
Fake 500. I like that.
I did not come up with that, but
I haven't heard it before.
Okay, well then I did. It's from the
Well, I'm very impressed that you came up with that on the spot just now.
Yeah, Mitchell created it. Trademark it now.
But back to the question.
I don't think we'll squeak into the playoffs. I don't think we're going to crash and burn though. With the way St. Louis has the team playing and like the vibes just being so strong, like I think this team could go on a 10-game losing streak and they'll still be having a good time. It's not the type of locker room where I'm really worried that they're going to crash and burn and drop in the standings. I think they're going to kind of tread water for a bit here.
What do you think is their most likely draft pick range?
Outside the top 10.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
I would say with the way this one's going.
Damn. That'll be interesting to revisit at the end of the year. If I had to guess, I would probably ballpark them between like 6 and 12 for a draft pick.
Yeah. Based on everything I've seen so far, I would tend to agree with Jack. Like, they do have enough talent to stay out of that basement. So it's not like it's unsustainable. Like, they certainly are putting up more wins than people expected, but I don't necessarily see them as a bottom feeder team either, especially the way that Caufield and Suzuki are going.
That Kirby Dach trade looks so good right now.
Yeah.
He's been such a monster for them. And then my follow-up question regarding Montreal is we kind of haven't given a lot of attention. It's not really like signings and trades season yet, although we're sort of creeping up as we approach the new year. What do you think about a Caufield contract? Because he's RFA at the end of the year, and like so are all of those national team development program guys. Like Zegras is going to need a contract, et cetera, et cetera. Like I think the only guys from that draft that have contracts would be Jack Hughes and Spencer Knight, that are like that American group. So I think like Matt Boldy will be in that too. I'm not sure if he has another year left after this one, but like we haven't really talked about that a lot, and we might be sort of jumping the gun on this conversation. But what, like as a Montreal Canadiens fan, like what are you thinking for a Cole Caufield extension? Would you want to go long term? Would you want to keep it as a bridge? And if so, what do you think those numbers?
So afraid to give him a bridge.
Okay, yeah, I agree.
I think if you give him a 2 to 3 year bridge right now, his next contract is going to start with a 10.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think it's going to be way higher than that, to be honest. I think he's going to be an elite goal scorer in the league based on everything I've seen. The dude just scores is all he does. So I think like if they gave him a 3-year deal and the cap shoots up, this guy puts up 40, 50 goals. I think you're looking at more than 10 million for sure.
That's true. Like I was thinking 10, like with this cap based off like percentage, it would definitely be higher.
Would you give him more or like, I guess equal to Jack Hughes' 8x8 right now?
If he would sign an 8x8, I would sign it today.
If I were a Montreal fan and he signed an 8x8 right now, I'd be jumping for joy.
Okay, that's sick.
I think 8x8 is already below what he'll get.
There is not a player that I can remember in like recent years that I've turned my tune on like so quickly. I hated him just because of that World Junior game, like the loss. I just couldn't stand him. Like watching him through that tournament and how I don't know, there was just something that bugged me in how that team beat Canada. But like he's just so electric to watch in the NHL now. It's hard not to like him and his personality and everything that's going on with the Habs, to be honest.
So you guys kind of are in agreement on the idea that maybe Cole Caufield will be sort of the benchmark for setting the salary sort of bar for the Montreal Canadiens roster construction, at least like for the next few years. Like, it's not Suzuki at his 7 point whatever.
Oh no, yeah, I think they should be giving Caufield more than that on a long-term deal for sure. Like, I kind of view it a little bit similarly to the Timmy contract. If you can get him like 8.5 or under, that's a bargain, in my opinion.
And then obviously, like, in a few years, depending what Slavkovsky does, he could sort of mess everything up like that too. But it's just interesting because I don't really view Caufield or even Suzuki for that matter as like, and this is just not because they aren't, this is just because of how I have them idealized in a similar way to how I don't think of Rupe Hintz as an $8.5 million player. I don't have Caufield and Suzuki in my brain as like franchise cornerstones, even though they absolutely are.
I was there last year. Like, I didn't really get it last year, and I think it's just because I didn't watch them enough. And I just being an Ottawa fan, there is a little bit of natural distaste towards Montreal, so I feel like I don't necessarily give them the credit sometimes that they deserve, and they certainly deserve it now.
Imagine if the Hurricanes offer sheet Cole Caufield in the offseason.
That'd be pretty fucking funny just for the lore of it.
It'd be awesome. It'd be awesome. Hilarious. I don't care who or what player. If it's an offer sheet, I'm down.
Yeah.
For last year, too, it was tough because obviously the first half of the season was garbage.
Yeah.
And then the second half, nobody knew if it was legit or if it was just a new coach bump.
Yeah.
So I would say the first, like, little bit of this season, we've been waiting for it to just fall off and all of a sudden the hot streak's over, but it just keeps going and it's starting to be the norm.
And that's probably the reason for my perception of Cole Caufield as not sort of a franchise guy. It's because of how he started the year and was like demoted to Laval and just could not score in the NHL and just had this miserable start to the season in conjunction with Montreal being the worst team. So it's taken a while for, I guess, him to reconcile his image, but I'm there. Like, I'm there on Cole Caufield. Like, he's an absolute rocket.
Well,
he's definitely
was the coach, right? Like, Ducharme was not.
No, he's terrible.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk about it a different time, but I honestly forget what the story of why Ducharme was coach is.
He spoke French.
Right. Didn't he
That's true.
Who did he replace, though? Was it Claude Julien before him?
Yeah.
And then Ducharme went to the final, right? In the bubble?
Yeah, and he got the job.
Or not the bubble, but that year, that like weird sort of COVID year when it was for the North Division. Okay.
And Ducharme was like very successful in the queue and with the World Juniors as well.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's okay. I remember that. He wasn't just like a complete nobody, but then he kind of didn't make it work in the NHL. Okay, let's move on. I was kind of hinting, like when I mentioned maybe Carolina will offer sheet Caufield, I wanted to transition over to the Carolina Hurricanes, another team that we haven't really touched on much at all this year. They're kind of one of those teams where when they win, it's just the status quo, so they're not terribly fun to talk about. But they're 14-6-6, and if it weren't for the NHL's stupid point system, they'd be 14-12, which is barely above 500, and they have a +4 goal differential, which is the same as the Buffalo Sabres. I don't know how like closely you guys have watched the Carolina Hurricanes, but like Martin Necas is leading the team in scoring. Aho's at a point a game. Svechnikov's at a point a game. Brent Burns has been as advertised. But then there's a significant drop-off after that foursome at the top in terms of point production. And I was just wondering if you guys have like caught a Hurricanes game or sort of have any idea what's going on there. But I kind of wanted to talk about Carolina for a bit.
Yeah, I have not watched them much, but a question that does come to mind is like their goaltending. How has that been this year?
It's bad. I'm looking at it right now. Yeah. Would you guys like to know the numbers?
Wasn't there some injuries or something too? I'm not sure.
Yeah, 100%. So right now, the goalie who has started the most games for them is, oh God, Peter. Is it Peter?
Yeah, Peter.
Kochetkov. I wasn't sure about the first name because it's spelled Pyotr. So their goalie with the most starts is Kochetkov. He has a 2.44 goals against with a 9.14 save. Solid. Didn't they give him like a 4x2 the other day?
Yeah, with him only playing like I think under 15 games or something.
Yeah,
like
it
that.
was crazy.
And
I'll
then their original tandem, expected tandem for the year, Antti Ranta and Frederik Andersen. Ranta has played 9 games. He has a 2.62 with an 8.94 save. And Frederik Andersen has reverted back to his playoff Leafs days with an 8.91 save percentage and a 2.72 goals against, and is currently on injury. I don't know if he's on injured reserve, but he's hurt with a lower body injury. So their goaltending hasn't been there besides Kochetkov. So maybe that could be a reason. But I also just think that, like, for a team that's consistently sort of applauded for their roster construction and their depth, I think they've sort of gotten ahead of it's almost the opposite of what Vegas does. Like, Vegas just brings in stars. Carolina's just been sort of letting guys walk. Off the top of my head, Dougie Hamilton and who's another guy that they just let go and just replaced him? I'm blanking. There's one other player that I cannot think of it was Niederreiter. They just let both of those guys walk.
Oh yeah.
And they just didn't replace them. Like, I think they just thought either internal
Pacioretty
development
was brought in and then hurt.
True. Okay, so they'll have him as a bump in like March or February whenever he plays, and then Tony DeAngelo as well. He walked. They got assets for him, but he's still they didn't really replace him.
To replace him.
Oh, right, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, okay, moving on from that.
Ripping your ideas.
But it's still true. Like, the point holds. Like, they don't have any depth, and the guys that they brought in to be depth, like a Jesperi Kotkaniemi, he was supposed to be number 2C this year for them. He has 5 points in 26 games. And he's on the first year of an 8-year deal worth like 4.82 because of his jersey number.
Remember when he had a $20 signing bonus and it was really funny?
Yeah.
Because that's where that ended. That's as good as it got for that contract.
Remember when Carolina What?
Yeah, remember when he was picked before Brady Tkachuk?
I never had that happening on mine, so just put me in charge. It would be better.
And then another guy that they've like significantly relied on for primary scoring over the last few years is Teuvo Teravainen, and he only has 7 assists in 16 games. He has no goals. So I would assume he's hurt right now. No, he's healthy, so he just hasn't produced. And so this is sort of a team that I think has. I don't know how to explain it, but I almost think that they've bitten off more than they can chew in the analytics department, rather than just retaining their good players. Just letting guys walk, filtering guys in and out, like that year that they just let all their goalies go and just replace them with Ranta and Freddie Andersen. They've had this recipe the last bunch of years, and it seems like maybe it's caught up to them. Now watch, they're going to go win 7 in a row and be fine. But like as of right now, they don't look like what people probably expected them to look like coming into the year.
I really don't follow them too closely, so it's really just speculation. But I'm curious if maybe Brind'Amour has lost the room. He's been there a long time.
I was just going to say they play such a defensive style too. And we've seen the league trend way more offensive. Like, scoring is up again this year after a record year last year. We're seeing more and more leads just disappear, and that's kind of what they play. Like, they get a lead and then they just hold it down. So we're kind of seeing, I guess, the trend go away from how, or I guess it's detrimental to how they play, I guess. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, combined with kind of the downgrade in goaltending that they've received. But it's interesting.
We'll have to do some, like, I don't know, some Carolina Hurricanes reading. See if any of their insiders at The Athletic or whatever sort of have written a story maybe about the Brind'Amour, because the Brind'Amour thing's interesting, Jack. Like, that's a super interesting thing, because it's unprecedented. Yeah.
He's probably one of my favorite coaches. The dude looks like he could still play.
Yeah.
But he's been there a long time, and there is a shelf life for coaches in pro sports. It's
kind of unprecedented anymore for coaches to last like 5 or more years while continuously being successful and having a team that still buys in. Like, the only good example is John Cooper, and that guy is an anomaly.
And they also got cups out of it, which Carolina hasn't.
After years and years of what like Carolina's kind of going through right now, though.
Well, you see, like Paul Maurice, he identified it himself, stepped down, and now Winnipeg is flying with a new voice.
Exactly. It's what has to happen with Ottawa, quite frankly. And I don't want to open that can of worms, but it's what has to happen. That team's too talented to be whatever 10 and 15, and so
it's just common nature that like, you can't have the same guy telling people what to do over and over again. Like the message is eventually not going to stick.
And especially when the message is constantly the same. Like how do you rally your players over and over and over for years and years when the message or like your go-to hype speed it doesn't change unless you're changing your philosophies as a coach. That's not going to change, and eventually it's just going to wear dry. It's going to become dry, and it's not going to work.
And like as much as it is pro sports, and they should be able to motivate themselves, part of the coach's job is to have them ready to run through a wall.
100%.
That's their number one job.
Yeah.
And if you're just telling them the same story over and over, like I'm sure Brind'Amour has a bunch of anecdotes from his career to talk about and stuff like that, but it gets old.
Yeah. Doesn't matter who it's coming from.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's move on to a different team that is what would be a good segue here? This is going to sound really good for those listening. I don't know where
you're going.
I'm going Leafs. We're going to talk about the Leafs for a bit. Matt Murray put up a 44-save shutout against the Dallas Stars last night. This is off the top of my head because I just went looking for the tweet and I couldn't find it. But if I'm not mistaken, I just found I saw a tweet that said this morning that he set the record for goals saved above expected in a game in the analytics era, and I think it was close to 6 goals.
Yeah, does that sound right? Point something.
I think it was 5.9. Okay, so read it.
From Money Puck, with a 5.979 goal saving above expected. Matt Murray's performance versus Dallas is the best for a goalie in a shutout since the modern stats started.
That is so sick. That is so sick. Like, that fires me up so much.
So it's not the best performance, I guess.
In a shutout, though. So, like, you can kind of... Yeah, you can kind of, like...
4-save shutout is crazy.
You can kind of finagle your way into justifying that it's, like, one of the best single-game performances of the last however many years.
Yeah, I don't care, like, if they're all just point shots with no screen. Yeah. 44 saves, no mistakes. That's impressive.
One is bound to go in.
Well,
it's just the law of averages.
When I got home from the game last night, I threw the Leafs game on for a bit, but I didn't really want to watch it. So I threw it on at a point when Toronto was killing they had killed a 4-minute, like they killed a double minor earlier in the game, and then they killed like I think a minute and a half of a 5-on-3, and it was absolutely insane what Matt Murray was doing. Like it wasn't just simple point shots and stuff from the point. Like he was getting absolutely peppered and just stood on his head, and they beat Dallas 4-0. They were outshot 44-28. And
have you seen Matt Murray's overall stats this year?
They're sick.
They're sick. He is 6-1-2 with a 234 goals against average and a 932 save percentage.
Yeah. And like obviously 9-game sample, yada yada, but like holy frick.
Barely even got 9 games with Ottawa last year. So
exactly. And so and even when he hasn't played, Samsonov's been unreal for them.
Yeah.
And I like, you know what? So I think, was it last week, Ryan, that I was talking about how I wanted to sort of discuss the general philosophy behind this whole approach to the Leaf season where, like, if Dubas wants a contract, they have to win a round?
Yeah, and we disagree on this. But
I heavily disagree with that philosophy. Jack, what are your thoughts on that?
Run me by it. I haven't watched it.
Okay, so it was like we didn't actually go into it, but it's kind of just the storyline that everyone is aware of going into this Leaf season is that Kyle Dubas is on an expiring contract, and if the Leafs don't win a round this year, he's not going to be general manager next year. And I wholeheartedly disagree with that decision-making process. I'd be curious to get your thoughts, and then I'd like to give mine.
Okay, I disagree with the logic behind that, but I think it's true to the Leaf situation.
What do you mean it's true to their situation?
Like, I think that's a stupid way to make your GM coaching decision.
I agree.
But I think the Leafs will do it because he's done nothing but bring in Sioux guys. He's stood by his coach probably too long. And he's continuously, like,
Just
not brought in what everyone thinks they need and, like, gone by his own philosophy, which, whatever. I like that. I respect it. But if it's not going to work, it's not going to work. Move on.
What do you mean he stood by his coach too long? This is Keefe's second, like, non-COVID season.
That's fair
And,
about
like,
the COVID.
and isn't this
like,
only his third season overall? Like, didn't he come on during the what was his first year? Did he come on during the COVID shortened season?
It was second year of the university, 2019.
Second year of university.
I just remember it because I was in the library when I saw it with Leaf fans. So
2019, 2020 is the year that the season was interrupted by COVID and they finished this year in a bubble. I think, is that the year that they fired Babcock and hired Keefe? So this would be like Keefe's fourth season, but third full season?
Like third and a half then.
Yeah, like 3.5 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So like so Jack, I think we're on the same page with this then. And maybe Ryan is too, but like maybe Ryan's sort of erring more on the side of like, this is how the NHL works, so it's just going to happen.
Well, I don't know if that's my logic either. It's more so like the coach conversation. Like, you haven't gotten it done. You haven't done your job. So a change needs to be made. Like, there can only be a voice at the top for so long. Like, I do see that, like, this is how it works in the NHL. Like, you don't live up to the expectations, you get fired. But I don't necessarily think it's that shallow either for me, in my head anyways. It's more so, like, you have not met the expectations of this organization for 4 years now, and you've doubled down on the exact same group pretty much. So I don't know. It's just, I guess it is just all about the expectations, but I don't necessarily think it's just like, oh, you haven't won a round, so you're gone. It's just, I don't know.
But that's what it is, though. That's what it is.
But sometimes you just need new leadership. I don't know. Like,
but like, why? This is what I don't get, is because, like, I get the coaching thing. Like, we just spent
how
10
can
minutes.
You agree with the coaching thing and not the GM thing?
Because the GM isn't in the room. The GM just puts the players on the ice. Why it is like
if his
Kyle
strategy
Dubas
isn't working, then
his strategy is working though. It's just these stupid 7-game samples where they run into buzzsaw teams in the.
That's the playoffs.
But that's all that matters in pro sports.
Yeah.
Like, I agree that logically a successful regular season is more impressive than winning a 7-game series because it's a larger sample. But when it comes to pro sports, that's not how it works. And you need to figure out how to get it done when it matters.
Yeah.
That's
just how sports work. You don't win, you get
I hate it, man. I hate it. It pisses me off so much. Like, so I've been getting really into soccer the last few weeks just because, like, the World Cup, welcome to Wrexham, and then I've been watching, like, this FIFA documentary about how they're super corrupt. And I love how much weight is placed on league titles. Like, they throw parades for winning a league title, and then there's not actually a playoff system. They go on to this thing called the Champions League, which is kind of the playoffs. And, like, I wish that the President's Trophy in the NHL was celebrated, and instead it's just some stupid, like, side trophy that no one cares about. And I think that's dumb. Like, I think that
people don't want it.
I know, it's wild. Like, I don't understand why 82 games worth of hockey just straight up doesn't matter for teams like the Leafs. And I get it, like, they haven't gotten over the first round hump, but it just really bothers me that Kyle Dubas, like, the Leafs have to have had the best record in the NHL over the last, like, 5 years. Like, they have to be right there. I just hate how, like, Kyle Dubas, like, what can he do? What more could he have done to have this team win a round? I just don't see how bringing someone in to replace Dubas, and then if they end up just winning around because of, like, one guy being different on the team. I can't wrap my head around, like, I get why this is like this. This is why, oh my God. I get why it's this way, but it pisses me off and I disagree with it so much because the Leafs are such an impressive team year after year, ripping through the regular season, and then they run into Tampa in the first round, get them as close to losing a playoff round as they have been in the last 3 years for like the best team of the last however many, whatever. They lose to Boston a few times, who are like consistently excellent over the last 10 years. Like they lose to Montreal, but then Montreal beats Vegas and Winnipeg anyway. So like all those teams were in the same boat as Toronto. So I just disagree with the logic, and I understand why it is the way it is, but I hate it and it pisses me off. And I don't know like what my argument is here. I just kind of wanted to vent those frustrations on behalf of Kyle Dubas.
I agree with what you're saying. Kyle Dubas, come on the show. We're defending you.
Yeah, come on.
It's the same thing with like
rip those connections, rip those Brock SPMA connections. Come on.
Yeah, he's an alumni of my program, so I'll just hit him up.
He's on a first name basis. Okay, Jack, you go.
It's the same thing as the relegation in soccer. It objectively makes more sense to have a tiered league where the worst teams get relegated. Mm-hmm. Like that would make so much more sense for hockey. But the NHL has been doing it how they've been doing it for over 100 years. It's not going to happen.
Yeah,
and it's the same thing with the President's Trophy and the Cup mattering more. It's just how it is, and I mean, I think it's objectively wrong as well. I agree with that. I'm not as passionate about it as you are, Mitch, but it's just how it is, and unfortunately, Dubas has to be a part of that system as well.
I haven't fully articulated this in my head either, so like I don't know how.
I know. I wish I didn't realize we were going to hit this today, so I wish I would have prepared it a little better. But I think my message was conveyed.
Yeah, but also your argument, like, oh, and then they just run into a good team in the playoffs. I think it would be the same situation if the regular season had like a championship attached to it. You would see all these teams ramp up in the last like little bit as opposed to the playoffs. And maybe that's when the Leafs still get beat. Like it's the games that matter that they just don't show up. And I get that's not on Dubas, but like, I don't know. Something needs to change. Like if the playoffs, or not playoffs, but like the championship was based on the regular season and it came down to like 5 teams that had a chance. I don't know. I feel like it's more mentality than anything, where like a team like Tampa might be able to bring off like 4 or 5 wins out of those last 5 wins, and Toronto might lose 3.
And ultimately too, if a guy like Julian Breezeball, Steve Yzerman are getting the job done and Dubas isn't, then he needs to do something different. Mm-hmm. Like you can argue that how the team plays in the playoffs isn't his fault. He just puts the players. But at the same time, other teams are making it work. So why isn't he?
The thing that's going to be so funny, assuming Toronto doesn't win around this year, is when Toronto fires Dubas and I don't know, Joey 55-year-old, like his dad was played in the NHL, comes in to be the GM of the Leafs and like trades
and
for
they pick up Ryan Reeves.
Yeah, and then trade for Nick Delorier's expiring contract or whatever. And he like kicks the shit out of Nikita Kucherov in the first round and the Leafs win in 7. And everyone goes, "Oh, good for Joey's dad was in the league." Like he's a great GM. Like, no, like that's
a little off topic, but how many teams are going to trade a pick for Ryan Reeves?
Well, Minnesota just did.
I know the teams keep doing it, and I don't.
I know. Oh, you're asking like going forward, how many teams?
Yeah. How many more teams are going to trade a pick for him?
Yeah, I don't know. Especially Minnesota. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, why are you bringing in that salary?
What are you doing, Billy? Like, let's go here. Like, wake up. What are we doing? I don't know, man. Like, but no.
Better hope you don't run into Ryan Reeves when Minnie's visiting Ottawa.
It just bothers me that this is the philosophy, and like, unless like Marner and Matthews don't crawl into their shell in the first round this year, Dubas is going to have to go find a job with some other team that. And he'll be fine. He'll be fine. He'll land on his feet, but it doesn't make sense. But and I'm not worried about that from Dubas's perspective. I'm arguing like on the behalf of the Maple Leafs. Like, don't make this mistake. Like, you're not going to find someone better.
Yeah, it's also kind of funny you bring up like the nepotism argument a little bit, because he's a product of it too.
Who?
Like Dubas, his grandfather owned the Sioux. That's how he got his first scouting job, and he's worked his way all the way up since. Like
I had
he
to
was
look
the
up-
GM of the Sioux.
I had to look up nepotism while you were saying that.
I like how we both went dead silent. Like, the fuck does that mean?
So, like,
I'm bringing big words into this.
I do love Dubas and how he operates, but like he's a product of that semi-hockey nepotism culture too.
And
yeah, I guess, but it's different.
just speaking of like
It's
his
not.
Brock days too, it reminded me of this thing with Keefe, where when Dubas was hired by Toronto, it got kind of popular. It was a presentation he gave for, I believe it was for Brock, but it was about the difference between how Sioux played with their last coach before they brought in Keefe. So like it does go back years that he's been supporting this guy and
Yeah.
kind of to a degree pulling him along.
The whole organization. He's been pulling the whole organization.
Exactly.
Like
He's
And that's what I'm
turned-
saying. Like
Did you
it's,
see the list that was circulating a few weeks ago
Oh,
on
it's
Twitter?
It's
It's
insane.
like an all-time. You can put together a whole team with the players from the Sioux that were there when he was there, that he's acquired.
No,
for the
it's-
league.
Kyle Dubas has single-handedly turned the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds into the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
Just
And
by
that's
like
what-
shifting the staff from one place to the next.
and that's what I think it could come down to is at the end of this year,
So, like-
if they lose in the first round, if he's going to die on that hill and only bring in Sioux guys and not move on from Keefe, then you pack your bags instead.
Yeah.
Like he needs
So
to
you-
abandon this loyalty if he's going to keep his job, I think.
But do you guys think that this is like unjust loyalty? Like, you guys think Keefe has had enough kicks at the can here?
I don't think either of them.
Like
have
one true non-COVID season?
I don't think it's
I-
necessarily unjust loyalty, but the argument can be made for it.
Okay, fair.
And that's the issue, especially when you're in Toronto, of all places.
Mm-hmm.
Like if he
Yeah,
goes
100%
to
wrong.
if he goes to some middle American team and builds them up this way, it'll be fine. But it's the Toronto Maple Leafs, so it's all under a different type of spotlight, and I think
Mhm.
that kind
And,
of
like,
highlights it.
I love Dubas. Like I really do. I love how he operates.
Me
And
too.
obviously he went to Brock, so like that was kind of a cool connection. But like I it's hard to just ignore the issues that he is kind of, or not issues, but like I don't know, I'll just say issues for now, that he's kind of brought into the fold as well too. Like it's I don't know. It's like the
And,
Sioux
like-
thing is crazy to me. I can't get over it.
I know.
And
it's
the
wild.
whole idea of staying the course, like that worked for Tampa. They took so many years to get over the
Mhm.
hump. Maybe it's going to work for Brind'Amour in Carolina. You don't get to do that if you're in Toronto.
No.
You don't get to
That's-
keep the same core for 8 years and then finally succeed. You
Mhm.
get 3 years tops, figure it out,
And-
move on.
And another element in this too is if you're like ownership, or I guess Dubas considering a coaching change or a GM change, like this is all going to revolve around Matthews over the next year. What does
Mhm.
Matthews want? Does he want Dubas to stay? Then he's
Yeah.
staying. If
Yeah.
he wants, I don't know if he wants a different voice, he's going to get a different voice. But I don't know.
Okay, I say okay. So we're at about 44 minutes. So let's spend another couple minutes. Like that's kind of an underrated, like, topic. I guess it's again jumping the gun a little bit, but you guys are both aware that Matthews has a no trade clause in the last year of his contract, right? So basically, the clock on like all the Matthews stuff ends as of like July 1st, because either like he sort of gives a
Not
wink, wink,
necessarily.
nudge, nudge. Well, he either gives a wink, wink, nudge, nudge to the Leafs that he's going to sign a contract so that they can sign him like after July 1st opens,
Yeah.
or it's the opposite and the Leafs can either like trade him or whatever their other options are. But like July 1st is kind of the day where we'll have a really good idea of what's going to happen with this guy,
Yeah, for sure.
which
He
is
definitely
like
controls his own destiny.
100%.
Like, I can see a Matthew Tkachuk situation for sure if there's no progress over the next year.
Yeah. So it's kind of weird because it's not like one of those things where it's like, oh, he's got a year and a half left. Like there's like Toronto's like they've still got time. It's like July 1st is kind of the day that you have to know what's going to happen with this guy, because after July 1st, if you don't know what's happening with this guy, you have to like figure it out, because you can't let this guy walk. But then after July 1st, he picks where he goes if you're going to trade him. So like I don't know. It's going to be super interesting. That wasn't really like a topic point, but like, do you guys have anything else you want to sort of hit on before we wrap up the show?
No, I think that was about it. But this has been a solid episode, actually.
It has been flying by, boys. Glad to be back.
Like I'm always so worried about the timer at the end too.
I know, it stresses me out.
I never think we're gonna make it past like 20 minutes, but we always do.
Yeah, we do. We always find a way, and we usually only come to the table with like 3 topics, and we end up going to 5, and one of them takes 15
minutes. And we didn't hit on
minutes,
any of the ones we talked about either.
Yeah, no, we didn't hit.
We
anything.
didn't even play in Montreal, and we talked on that for like 15 minutes.
Well, okay, we'll wrap up the show with this. We're sending our thoughts out to Chris Letang. He had the second stroke of his career. Apparently, it's not nearly as bad as the first one, which I believe forced him to miss 8 months, if I saw that right. He missed a significant amount of time, but apparently he's expected.
My fantasy team that year.
He wrecked mine this year. But so no, I didn't want to mention that. Anyway, but yeah, so it's not expected to keep him out terribly long term. I think
he's already back on the ice.
Yeah, and so apparently he was lobbying with the Penguins to play the night that he had the stroke, which is wild. It's freaking
hockey
nuts.
Players are just different, man.
They are. It's crazy. But yeah, so we wanted to throw that out there. Wanted to acknowledge that. Hopefully, Chris Letang is back on the ice soon. Yeah. So if you guys don't have anything else, I think that'll
players of the week.
No, because nobody prepared that, so we're gonna skip that this time.
Okay.
I was just.
Did you?
I was just gonna say, Jack, do you want to end with the good stories that you saw?
Yeah, I can do that. Let me pull one up because there's one name I don't want to get wrong.
Okay.
He's going to get it wrong anyway.
Shut up. Don't put that on me. Shout out Craig Berube for not defending Jordan Binnington. Because honestly, that shit's ridiculous.
It's getting wild.
I love the fact that even his coach was like, nah.
Yeah. Just stop the puck, buddy, because he's been shit this year.
That's the thing. If you're good and you want to be a stupid, mean goalie, then go for it.
Stupid, mean goalie?
I don't know how to describe it. That's how I played. So, like, I don't know. That's some shit I would have done in House League. Like, get that shit out of the league. You don't need to do that. And he didn't even, like, the one on Jordan Staal, he got fucking decked.
Yeah, it was awesome.
You're embarrassing yourself at that point. Wayne Simmons, it was a little bit ago, but took out Isaiah Meyer Crothers, the kid Mitchell Miller bully, took him out for his birthday, gave him Leafs tickets.
Yeah.
Like, that's just awesome stuff
Cool
to do.
stuff.
And Pat Maroon as well. From the Jack Edwards comments, I don't know if you guys mentioned those, but turning that into a good thing, it's pretty cool to see. He handled it like a champ and turned it into
Jack Edwards is such a loser, dude.
He is already. Like, even way before that, he always has been. But that's
what I'm saying.
I honestly don't know how he, like, has lasted through this, like, Don
Boston
Cherry.
fans love him, and I don't get it.
Yeah, I know, but like he's essentially the same thing as Don Cherry. Like, get him out.
I would get so annoyed if my like local commentator was like that much of a freaking homer.
I would not listen. Like,
no, I wouldn't watch. I would find some like visiting.
He's crazy. He's like talking to like your uncle who doesn't really get hockey and just thinks like it's still the 80s.
Yeah. No,
and it's like I can't even have a conversation with those people. Shut up.
Any French guy that's a Habs fan.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Like
the average Leafs fan in a comment section.
like all where was I going with this? Shit. Never mind.
All right, let's wrap up the show.
I gave three of the week, one for each of us. You're welcome.
Very good, very good. All right, that'll do it for this episode 39. Ryan, you're the one who has to end the recording, so I am going to be the one to say, play the outro.